As Anakin's silhouette disappeared from the dark alleyway, Sidious travelled to an abandoned warehouse, which was located in the lower levels of the underworld, and there the Sith met with his apprentice. The failure of Cad Bane all but confirmed the concerns for the Sith, and now Dooku could sense that Sidious wanted Anakin. The Sith Lord assured Dooku that he would have his place in his empire after the war, but were they to avoid their destruction, Sidious now needed something more than Order 66. Knowing they would now struggle to directly get to Anakin, the Sith now decided to hurt those around him. After all, compassion was Anakin's greatest weakness. Returning to a secret archive, the Sith opted to invade the mind of one Padme Amidala, as the Sith Lord would see her more often than a Jedi. The ritual was used as early as the Great Hyperspace War, with the Sith sat out Keto using the mind-controlling magic to eliminate resistance on Kirek, but now the Sith would use the ability on just one individual. As Padme was in her apartment on the other side of the planet, the two Sith focused their minds to plant doubtful thoughts towards Anakin and the Jedi. In one of the many quarters of the Jedi Temple, Anakin was performing his new hobby of meditation when he felt a slight ripple in the Force. The Jedi turned to Ahsoka, who was also meditating, but she had sensed nothing. Getting back to his feet, he used a technique he learned on Mortis and cast ripples of his own into the Force, and it allowed him to sense changes in beings around him. The faintest of signals emitted from the outer reaches of the concentric circles, and he could sense the distinct presence of Padme Amidala. The Jedi Knight leapt to his feet and rushed out of the Jedi Temple in a blur, taking his speeder to the veranda of Padme's apartment. The Senator's surprised to see Anakin, and the Jedi Knight tells her about everything on Mortis, then his heightened senses in the Force. As the sunset turned to night, Anakin still felt uneasy about these waves in the Force, as Padme assured him it was merely the stress of the war, but soon these sensations turned to alarm. Padme could see Anakin's face turn to battle mode, and descending the turbo lift of the Senate apartment complex, the lift suddenly stopped. The Jedi and Senator ricocheted off of the clary crystalline interior of the lift, and around the city, the lights started to flicker then disappear. Residents were reminded of the recent attack on the power grid, and as residents scrambled to find light, a group of senators led by Palpatine were moved to the 500 Republica, whilst Republic engineers moved to restore power. Elsewhere in the Federal District, the scenes were much more chaotic. The power cut was exploited by those in the Republic's detention center, and everyone from bounty hunters to assassins were breaking free and causing chaos in the streets. The likes of Boba Fett, Aurra Sing and Bossk all made their way to the underworld to look for transport off of Coruscant, as others were pursued by clone troopers. Jedi such as Quinlan Vos were helping the investigators, but Anakin sensed something more sinister was at play. The Jedi returned to his speeder, but rather than race through the streets, he scanned from the skies like a predator, and he spotted one area near the recently repaired power grid. Amongst the wreckage was a conveniently placed head of a obi-wan battle droid, and Anakin pulled the head towards him, but as it flicked past the cable, the head exploded to cause yet more destruction. The darkness in the industrial area was soon illuminated by the flashing lights of Coruscant police gunships. As he was surrounded by the Coruscant Underworld Police and clone shock troopers, the Jedi Knight realised that he had been framed, and he could either resist or let events unfold. Anakin placed his faith in the Force, and allowed himself to be placed into military custody. As he was transported into the Republic gunship, then taken to the Republic Center for Military Operations, he began to make a list of candidates who were behind this attack. Whilst Dooku and the Separatists seemed the most obvious candidate, he now believed that the faint ripple in the Force surrounding Padme was connected to this latest attack, and the work of a mysterious Sith Lord more powerful than Dooku. Anakin remained in a temporary cell guarded by laser gates, but by the following day, the investigators could not find any evidence of Anakin's involvement, so he returned to the Senate building to check on the health of the senators. Whilst they had survived unscathed, a second attack in only a few months was leading to protests outside of the building, and questions were being asked of the Jedi and the Republic Army. On his return to the Jedi Temple, Anakin is summoned to the Jedi Communication Chamber, and he is given his next mission to Lola Seiyu. Anakin wanted to stay on Coruscant to protect Padme from further attacks, and to pursue the one person who might know the identity of the attacker, who was the recently deposed Sith assassin Asajj Ventress. As Anakin, Obi-Wan and the clones prepared for the mission, Anakin knows the significance of rescuing Master Peel, so he decides to delegate his personal mission to Ahsoka. While she wanted to go to the dangerous Citadel, the Togruta had an old score to settle with Ventress, so she reluctantly accepted to remain on Coruscant. As Anakin was lowered for carbonite freezing, he looked at the other troops for this mission, and he couldn't help but feel like it was deliberately shifted from Coruscant. Like the father had warned him, his new power was making him paranoid with saving everyone, and he reminded himself that he must retain balance. But as the Jedi bypassed the Citadel security, his Padawan was wondering why she had been asked to go on a wild banter chase. Ahsoka knew that Padme was capable of defending herself, having survived the attack from Aurra Sing, and even with the escape of the bounty hunters, Ahsoka thought Anakin was just being cautious. The Togruta still decided to carry out her master's request, as she had no intentions of studying in the Jedi archives, and she made her way to the Senate office building. When she entered into Padme's office, the Senate had been expecting Ahsoka, and she told her that she was safe, with Captain Typho and her trusty Naboo royal guards. A slightly reassured Ahsoka then shared details of Anakin's secret mission, and Padme suggested she should go to the Jedi archives and retrace the last steps of Asajj Ventress. The Padawan grumbled at going to the archives, so she decided to seek out the one person she could trust, who was the Kossian Jedi Master Terra Sinube. With his vast knowledge of the criminal underworld, Ahsoka was hoping for his help again, and once more the Jedi asked her to be patient. Instead of accessing his vast database of Coruscant's underworld, the Jedi decides to use his droid M5BZ to obtain a record of the Dathomirians' history and movements. After discovering Ventress's history with the Jedi and her master Kai Narek, then her apprenticeship under Dooku and the Separatists, the two Jedi travel to Coruscant's spaceport, and with the help of the clones of the port authorities, they access the Republic database for journeys across their ports, and they piece together the last movements of Ventress. After Obi-Wan and Anakin had encountered Ventress above Toydaria, the former Sith assassin fell down to the planet, and using a junk ship, she travelled from the mid-rim to wild space, and then to the core. Master Sinube speculated that she lost her way, and inevitably this would lead her back home to Dathomir. Whilst the Jedi looked for a way off of the planet, the strike team over Lola Seiyu had successfully made their landing, and were looking for a way into the Citadel. With the entrance guarded by electromines, Anakin disagrees with Obi-Wan's plan, and instead, he decides to use the Force to lift the entire team up to the entry point. Seeing two super battle droids patrolling the corridors, he crushes both of them, and fires their remains into the laser gate controls to allow the Jedi into the Citadel. With Anakin still reluctant to show his power to all but Obi-Wan and Rex, he waited for the team to enter the maze of corridors before receiving the signal from Obi-Wan. Anakin looked up at the central control tower and channeled the Force through his body to turn into a Relta-like avian creature, then flew to the summit. As the Warden Ozzy Sobek was talking to Count Dooku and looking at the security cameras in the corridors, Anakin transformed back to human form and threw his lightsaber in a wide arc. The glass around the tower shattered, and Anakin diverted these shards into the commando droids and Sobek, leaving only the hologram of Dooku. The Sith was almost impressed by Anakin's display of power, but before he could taunt the Jedi further, Anakin crushed the console and demagnetized the area so the strike team could kill the other droids. As the strike team completed their successful mission in retrieving the Nexus route coordinates, Ahsoka and Master Sinube had managed to sneak aboard a freighter to Corellia. The Jedi then boarded a rusty salvage ship and made their way to the rundown port on Dathomir, emerging in a cloud of red mist. Having to walk to the Night Sister fortress was no obstacle for the Jedi, but they soon were faced by a small legion of Night Sisters, pointing their array of energy bows and other weapons in their faces. Upon their request to see Asajj Ventress, Mother Taus imparted through the Night Sisters, and using the magical eye core of the planet, she created a crystal ball to see the events of the future. With the arrival of these two Jedi, the visions had changed to those of war, and in a bid to protect her clan, she dismissed the two Jedi from her sight. Master Sinube did not see this as a sign of failure, but proved that Ventress was hiding amongst the clan. But when they returned to the spaceport, the entire place was ablaze, including their ship. The sound of a dreadnought caused tremors across the area, and Master Sinube deduced that the Jedi must have been tracked, bringing their war to Dathomir. Back on Coruscant, The Jedi strike team had returned from their successful mission, and Anakin wasted no time in seeing Padme, but when he heard about Ahsoka's pursuit of Ventress, Anakin was mortified at what he had done. The Jedi Knight could not regret leaving Coruscant, as he now had to find his missing Padawan. The only question was how.